Joe Rogan has finally spoken out about Joel Osteen, and it's sending shockwaves through conversations everywhere. Known for his unfiltered takes and fearless approach, Rogan doesn't hold back, leaving fans and critics alike buzzing. What sparked this bold move, and could it change how we see one of the most controversial figures in modern religion? Stick around as we unpack every gripping detail of this jaw-dropping revelation. What you don't know about Joe Rogan. You may know Joe Rogan as a UFC commentator, a stand-up comedian, the former host of Fear Factor, or a renowned podcaster, perhaps even all of the above. Yet, there's likely much about him you still don't know. From his TV roots to his impressive martial arts background, Joe Rogan's story goes far deeper than it seems. He's built an empire through his no-holds-barred approach to conversation, challenging conventional views and diving into everything from science to culture, philosophy, and beyond. His diverse experiences have made him a fascinating and polarizing figure, with every new project adding layers to his multifaceted persona. Created by Jimmy Kimmel and Adam Carolla, The Man's Show aired on Comedy Central for 5 years, from 1999 to 2004. Some people may remember the ridiculous sketch comedy show, but not so many of them might recall that it wasn't always Kimmel and Carolla steering the ship. The last 2 seasons of the show were hosted by Joe Rogan and fellow stand-up comedian Doug Stanhope. Unfortunately, it wasn't smooth sailing for Rogan and Stanhope. The show offered them ridiculous money, Stanhope told Savannah Now. But it was awful. It was so bad. We knew it was bad. They wouldn't take any of our ideas. Stanhope later went on Rogan's podcast, where he named Comedy Central executive Zoe Friedman as the problem. Apparently, Friedman rarely let them do what they wanted and always chose a less funny alternative. Rogan added that he thought a female executive probably shouldn't have been running a show created for, hosted by, and marketed directly to men. Behind-the-scenes issues aside, Rogan still managed to accomplish such things as introducing Fear Factor's official taste tester, Josh Silberman, who ate boiled pig uterus while getting a juggy massage. With segments like that, The Wheel of Destiny, Make Me Stiff, and all the rest, it's no wonder why The Man's Show doesn't exist anymore today. Rogan's wild ride on Fear Factor. You probably saw at least one episode of Fear Factor hosted by Joe Rogan, but did you see the one where he almost had to put a contestant down? On one particularly rowdy episode, former Survivor contestant Johnny Fairplay, a notorious trash talker, really got under the skin of fellow contestants Jonathan and Victoria. After taunting them extensively, Victoria decided she'd had enough of Fairplay's verbal abuse and punched the obnoxious loudmouth with full force. In his role as the show's host, Rogan got pretty ticked off, telling Victoria, "You can't assault people. If you and your husband hit each other, that's one thing. You don't run up and hit other contestants." Victoria's husband, Jonathan, decided to stick up for his wife and got in Rogan's face. Unsurprisingly, it didn't end well for Jonathan, though it could have been a lot worse. Rogan ended up restraining the contestant by grabbing onto the back of his head UFC style, saying later that he was ready to knee his brain into another part of the universe. Lucky for Jonathan, his brain remained in his skull, though he should have known better than to pick a fight with an accomplished martial artist. Rogan and conspiracy theories. If there's one thing Rogan loves more than fighting and comedy, it's conspiracy theories. Over the years, it seems that Rogan has discussed, debated, and championed just about every conspiracy theory you can think of. In addition, Rogan briefly hosted a show called Joe Rogan Questions Everything. In one episode, he questioned the Windsor hum, a weird rumbling noise that's been disturbing Windsor, Canada, for years. Rogan seems to believe the hum is part of a U.S. conspiracy to control the weather. The Joe Rogan Experience has been around since podcasting's formative years. In 2009, Rogan and his friend Brian Redban created the show in response to the pair's interest in the relatively new medium of live streaming. Only 9 months after its launch, the The show found a place on iTunes' Top 100 podcasts, and only took off from there. With roughly 1,000 episodes, the long-running show has been one of America's most popular podcasts, winning Best Comedy Podcast in 2012 and being recognized by Time as one of the 10 most popular podcasts of 2015. Today, the show is downloaded over 30 million times per month. That's a lot of listeners. Let's talk about Joel Osteen. You've likely heard about his inspiring sermons and his reputation as a beacon of positivity. But what if there's more to the story? Let's explore a different side of Joel Osteen, one that might surprise you. The shady side of Joel Osteen. Joel Osteen has endured plenty of criticism throughout his career. The toothy preacher has come under fire for everything from his physical appearance to his spiritual beliefs to his lack of theological training. In the wake of Hurricane Harvey, the Houston, Texas-based pastor attracted a lot of heat for allegedly not doing enough to help, like so many selfless community members actually did, becoming heroes in the process. From not being quick enough to condemn some clearly objectionable behavior, to being accused of misrepresenting the basic tenets of Christianity in a variety of ways, Osteen's public image is far from that of a flawless saint. Though leaders of other megachurches condemned white supremacists and racist attitudes after an August 2017 neo-Nazi rally in Charlottesville left one woman dead and several others injured, Osteen kept noticeably mum. His only commentary on the incident, and on the topic as a whole, was a vague Facebook post. One of the biggest challenges we all face is getting along with people, because everyone is different. We have different personalities and different temperaments. We come from different backgrounds. When somebody doesn't agree with us or isn't doing what we like, it's easy to get into conflict with them, to argue, to try to straighten them out, to prove our point. No, you have to be the bigger person. Just because they're doing wrong doesn't mean you have to engage. In March 2017, Radar Online reported that Osteen and Lakewood Church were being sued by a family accusing a church staff member of body-slamming its baby girl. Court documents obtained by the site claim that in May 2014, a representative of the church grabbed a child safety seat housing Victoria Wedderburn, a minor, and threw the seat off the church pew. It landed face-first on the floor while still strapped to the safety seat, causing serious bodily injury and extensive mental and emotional damage. Osteen's attorneys claimed the incident that made the basis of this suit was caused by the actions of third parties over whom the Osteens had no control. Osteen also claimed the church and its employees had no liability for the incident, based on the Charitable Immunity Act. The church reportedly settled with the Wedderburn family for $15,000, despite asserting it had no wrongdoing and that the claims were entirely made up. When talk show host Larry King asked Osteen about abortion and same-sex marriage in his 2005 interview, Osteen replied, "You know what, Larry? I don't go there." But he did go there in January 2011, telling Piers Morgan Tonight, "I've always believed, Piers. The scripture shows that it's a sin, but I'm not one of those that are out there to bash homosexuals and tell them they're terrible people and all that." During another interview in October 2011, Morgan asked Osteen if his views on same-sex marriage and homosexuality had evolved. The preacher said his belief really never changes and that he's not against anything, but it's based out of the scripture. Homosexuality is a sin. He added, again, "I would just reiterate what I said. I'm not mad at anybody. I don't dislike anybody." Following Hurricane Harvey's tour of destruction through Houston in 2017, Joel Osteen could not win for losing. First, there was the shame of Osteen not offering his church as a shelter to evacuees and people whose homes were destroyed by the storm. Then, he was shamed for what he said to those evacuees once they were there. There's tone deaf, and then there's the concept of telling people who've lost their homes to flooding to stay positive, sort of tone deaf. Unfortunately, Osteen was the latter. Osteen had already received swift backlash on social media for not opening up Lakewood Church to displaced victims immediately following the storm, and he probably thought his bad PR stint was in the rearview mirror once he offered shelter. But then, he said the following during his sermon to the displaced Houston residents: "We are not going to understand everything that happens, but, having a poor old me mentality or look what I lost, or why did this happen, that's just going to pull you down." Osteen was trying to tell the parishioners to stay positive and trust that God will help them out of this terrible situation. Naturally, some interpreted his statement as, "Quit your whining. Open mouth. Insert foot." Whether its massive size is the talk of the town or claims he didn't open it up to help his fellow Houstonians in Hurricane Harvey's aftermath, he says he did, Joel Osteen's Lakewood Church has received a lot of attention. The institution dominated the headlines again in December 2021. Till then, no one knew that Joel Osteen's church hid a secret in the walls. The story begins in 2014 when the Lakewood Church reported the theft of $600,000 in cash and checks from a safe. Fast forward to 2021, when 100.3's The Morning Bullpen got a call to remember. The show hosts were discussing the strangest things found in walls when a plumber shared what he apparently happened upon at the Lakewood Church. There was a loose toilet in the wall, and we removed the tile. We went to go remove the toilet, and I moved some insulation away, and about 500 envelopes fell out of the wall, and I was like, oh wow. Those envelopes contained the missing cash and checks reported stolen in 2014. The plumber told the radio show hosts that he let the church's maintenance supervisor in on his peculiar find. In a statement obtained by Cron, the church said the money was insured when it disappeared, noting that they were working with both the local police department and their insurance company to restore the stolen funds to the church. In a 2005 interview on Larry King Live, Osteen, who had no formal seminary training, came under fire from critics for seemingly contradicting himself. When King asked Osteen if he believed people of other faiths who don't believe in Jesus would go to heaven, Osteen offered a somewhat rambling and unclear response in which he said, "I'm very careful about saying who would and wouldn't go to heaven. I believe there's what the Bible teaches, and from the Christian faith, this is what I believe." Of atheists going to heaven, Osteen said he leaves it up to God to be the judge of who goes to heaven and hell, adding, I believe it's a relationship with Jesus. But you know what? I'm not going to go around telling everybody else if they don't want to believe that that's going to be their choice. Osteen later published a letter on his website apologizing for perceived waffling, writing that upon review of the show transcript, he saw that he had not clearly stated that having a personal relationship with Jesus is the only way to heaven. Osteen apologized and further clarified, "It was never my desire or intention to leave any doubt as to what I believe and whom I serve. I believe with all my heart that it is only through Christ that we have hope in eternal life." Well, this is awkward. In May 2017, Osteen attended his son's graduation at the University of Texas. While there, Osteen and his son posed for a photo flashing the school's signature, Hook M. Horn's hand gesture, a sign meant to mimic the university's Longhorn mascot. Unfortunately for the preacher, that led some of his followers down a dark rabbit hole. Twitter users slammed Osteen for allegedly worshipping the devil, with one user writing, "The sign, sir. I honor you, but that hand gesture sent a very bad signal, sir. Can't believe it's you." Another wrote, "Why on earth would you use a devil sign? My goodness, a thumbs up would work." Amidst all the controversies and criticism, a major twist emerged when Joe Rogan addressed Joel Osteen on his show, sparking a heated debate like never before. Joe Rogan broke the silence about Joel Osteen. Among the countless topics Joe Rogan has tackled on his wildly popular podcast, The Joe Rogan Experience, one of the most memorable moments came when he criticized megachurch pastor Joel Osteen for his actions, or lack thereof, following Hurricane Harvey. Joel Osteen, the pastor of Lakewood Church in Houston, Texas, came under fire for initially failing to open the doors of his 16,000 seats megachurch to provide shelter for those displaced by the devastating hurricane. While the storm wreaked havoc on Houston, leaving thousands homeless and in need of assistance, Osteen's church remained closed. This sparked a wave of backlash on social media, with many accusing him of failing to practice the very compassion and generosity he preaches. Joe Rogan was among those who weighed in on the controversy. On his podcast, Rogan expressed his frustration and disbelief over Osteen's decision, calling it emblematic of the hypocrisy sometimes seen in televangelists. Rogan's critique was pointed and unfiltered, as he questioned how someone who claims to serve God and help others could turn away people in need during such a crisis. "You're Joel Osteen," Rogan said, addressing the issue on his show. "You have this massive church that's basically a stadium. People are literally drowning, and you can't open your doors." He went on to suggest that actions like Osteen's undermine the trust people place in religious leaders and institutions. Rogan's comments resonated with his audience, many of whom shared his anger and disappointment. Osteen's initial response to the criticism didn't help his case. He claimed that the church was inaccessible due to flooding, though journalists and social media users shared photos of the building appearing dry and unharmed. This discrepancy fueled accusations that Osteen's reluctance to open the church was less about safety and more about optics or logistical concerns. Rogan, like many others, was not convinced by these explanations. As the backlash intensified, Osteen eventually opened Lakewood Church to evacuees, providing shelter, supplies, and support to those affected by the hurricane. However, the damage to his reputation had already been done. For Rogan, this belated action only highlighted the problem. It shouldn't take a public shaming for someone to do the right thing, Rogan argued, emphasizing that true leaders, especially religious ones, should be proactive in helping their communities. Rogan's criticism of Osteen wasn't just about the specific incident during Hurricane Harvey. It also touched on broader concerns about the wealth and behavior of some televangelists. Osteen, who lives in a multi-million-dollar mansion and leads a church with a reported $90 million annual budget, has long faced scrutiny over his lifestyle. Rogan questioned whether such prosperity aligns with the teachings of humility and service central to Christianity. The podcast host also highlighted the growing disconnect between mega-rich pastors and the communities they claim to serve. "How can you preach about giving and sacrifice," Rogan asked, "when your life looks nothing like the struggles of the people in your congregation?" This sentiment struck a chord with many listeners, sparking further debates about the accountability of religious leaders. The Joel Osteen Hurricane Harvey incident remains a flashpoint in discussions about faith, wealth, and responsibility. Rogan's candid critique served as a reminder that public figures, especially those in positions of moral authority, are not immune to scrutiny. While Osteen's actions eventually provided much-needed relief to those affected by the hurricane, the delay in his response left a lasting stain on his reputation. For Joe Rogan, this episode was yet another example of why people should critically examine the actions of those in power, religious or otherwise. As he often says on his podcast, words are easy. It's what you do that counts. In the case of Joel Osteen and Hurricane Harvey, Rogan's critique sparked important conversations about leadership, accountability, and the true meaning of service. Joel Osteen's lavish lifestyle has also been a point of contention for many critics. Living in a sprawling $10.5 million mansion in Houston and enjoying the benefits of a reported $100 million net worth, Osteen's opulent way of life stands in stark contrast to the humble teachings of Christianity. While Osteen has repeatedly stated that his wealth comes from his book sales and not church donations, this has done little to quell public criticism. Many question whether a pastor should live in such extravagance while preaching about humility, sacrifice, and helping the less fortunate. Osteen's lifestyle, including luxury cars, designer clothing, and frequent high-profile events, has led some to label him as out of touch with the struggles of his followers. So, what do you think about Joe Rogan breaking his silence on Joel Osteen? Eye-opener or just another hot take? Share your thoughts below. Don't forget to click the cards on your screen for more interesting videos.